Well, hello, Dawn Dunn Beach Retreat. I kind of wish I was at a beach retreat right now. I love water. I love being by water. I'm actually at our lake house, and so I'm by water, but we're in northeastern Michigan. So probably a little chillier. 3 days, 3 mornings ago, there was snow on the ground. Yesterday it was 75. We don't have docks in the lake yet. We're just like pulling stuff out from winter, getting ready for spring. The daffodils just bloomed. So you are probably in a warmer location, but I will tell you that a Mary Kay retreat, those are some of my favorite times in my 38 years in this business. I love gathering together. I love quality time. That's my love language for sure. So I am first off congratulating you because I know many of you qualified for this. And also congratulating you on taking advantage of it because some may have qualified and not chose to come, or some had an opportunity to go and chose not to. You chose to be there. So I'm excited to hear from Dawn what God does while you're at this event, because if you invite him to be in a place, then he's going to show up. And I know wherever he's at, there is refreshment, there is wisdom available, there is encouragement, there's conviction. It's not condemnation. That's what Satan works with. Conviction, and conviction is good. So I pray that you're experiencing all of those things plus some. Dawn asked me to share my secret sauce, my Mary Kay journey and my secret sauce. So here we go. It's not planned out. Obviously, I can do my I story, and I did have a couple notes, but I think I'm going to be winging it because I don't know where they're at. But my Mary Kay journey started 38 years ago, May 19th. So I'm heading into the start of my 38 year with Mary Kay, which is incredible. 38 years ago, I was a much different person. I always knew there was a giant inside of me, but I didn't know what the vehicle was to figure out what that giant was and what that giant was supposed to be doing. And so I grew up in Michigan. I did, you know, lots of different like artistic horseback riding, taught jumping, downhill skiing, ballet in tow for like 7 years. Didn't do team sports. I learned a lot about team sports from my husband because he played football at Michigan, grew up with a dad as a coach, a grandpa as a coach. There's a whole university with dorms named after them. So they did all of that stuff. So I've learned a lot about coaching from him and watching a lot of sports in the last 37 years that we've been married. But I went to college because, I mean, that's what you did back in the 80s. You went to college. I love now that people are thinking a little bit more outside the box as far as apprenticing and the trades, etc., because God wires us all to do different things. And so looking back, I was just kind of going along with other people's expectations, good things, but really did not have a plan for my life. I was a girl that changed her major after every summer internship because I realized I cannot do this for a living. And honestly, when Mary Kay intersected my life, we had studied Mary Kay at business school at Michigan. I was a marketing major and a psychology minor. But I knew it was a reputable company, and we studied it, how it was put together, but I never even thought about doing Mary Kay because my perception of what doing Mary Kay was you're a stay-at-home mom and you need to make a little bit of extra money selling lipstick. And you can't do that, right? But I was 23. My goal was to make $100,000 a year by the time I was 30, and that was back in the 80s. And I knew I'd probably have to go back to get my master's to do that. And I really had this tension between, my dad was very successful in business and my mom was a stay-at-home mom. And I wanted both. I didn't want to compromise on either of those. And I wasn't seeing any examples of that in the 80s. I was never offered a Mary Kay facial until I moved to Cleveland for the job that I was recruited for all over business school. And that's where the training program was. I was working probably 80 hours a week. It was honestly one of those programs that recruits the people with good grade points from the best colleges in the nation and then tries to kill you in the first year. And if you don't get killed, then you're very promotable. And so I was surviving, but I wasn't liking what I was seeing. I already had more month than money. I grew up with thinking that if I had a credit card and a check, I had money. That was my financial management. And so that doesn't go well. And so Mary Kay has allowed me to dig myself out of credit card debt, embezzling my own inventory. I've sold all my inventory and spent all the money a couple times early in my business, and had to reinvest, take out another line of credit to get inventory again, to use it and then be a responsible steward. So, those of you, don't worry, my lessons on financial stewardship are very clear. They were very painful, but they're very clear. So I was never approached, and still since then, 38 years later, I've never been approached other than one time. And, you may think, well, for 38 years, you have your, pink car, your pink Escalade, but you guys, I don't live in my pink car. I mean, I love driving around in our up north car, our little car. I love being in my husband's car where people have no idea what I do. Like, I'm an introvert. And so this Mary Kay business has been challenging in some respects because I was never a fangirl of bands and stuff. And so fan people with Mary Kay success stories, or that is uncomfortable and weird for me. And also too, like, I love doing Mary Kay parties. I love being with people, but then I need to be by myself to fill back up, to live in overflow. I have to have those quiet times with the Lord and in the Word, etc. And I never knew that until I was in Mary Kay. Gosh, we learned so much about ourselves. Like, this, looking back, has been worth a master's and probably a doctorate in education, in business, people skills, communication, and leadership. This has been in faith, like going to seminar, being exposed to people who actually take God's word and apply it to their Monday through Saturday life, not just their Sunday, Wednesday night life. God knew I needed to see that. Just for being a mom and now a grandma and a Christ follower. I wasn't that. I was religious. I was confirmed in 2 different denominations. I was very successful at religion because it was like learning. It was head stuff, right? But the relationship part, I mean, that was 9 years into my Mary Kay business, on a Mary Kay trip in Paris, when Amiritai, NSD, Kathy Halou, and Sue Ubel were in the Word, studying it at nighttime. And I started asking questions and going, oh my gosh, like, this is what they were talking in VBS. This is that confirmation. Like, I knew God, Jesus, the Word, like, I knew all the things, but the relationship part God, I know when he had Nancy Murata come and offer me an opportunity to be a face model in her Mary Kay portfolio in May of 86. May of 86, in a bougie mall in a suburb of Cleveland. And I said, a face model? Oh my gosh, Glamour and Vogue had just started to do the before and afters. And I had probably carried around totes of men's underwear and retail management, 100 hours that last past week, not feeling too glamorous, not feeling too successful, knowing that, my visa bills were here and my paycheck was there, and was engaged. My husband's job, he was becoming a federal agent, and he was not going to be making enough money to pay our bills. So we needed my income, but we had no idea where we were going to be moved to, where he was going to be stationed. And so I said, sure, I'll have a facial. And so I saw Debbie Moore walking ahead of Nancy. They were walking together. I saw her like nudge Nancy and suggest that she come and talk to me. I didn't have a really good attitude about that, because when you're miserable, you pretty much have miserable attitudes too. And so I like, what are they saying about me? But Nancy was very nice and she asked me to be a face model. I love that way to build your business. It complements someone. If you're involved in your community with business women, do a business working woman portfolio. Have her business cards in there, her before and after, etc. Great advertising for her. You can put it on your Facebook groups. You can, have it at all of your appointments. But I said yes to Nancy because I was complimented, but I also said, what does she do? I want to know what she does there. Debbie Moore was dressed, to the nines. She was, in her suit. We used to wear suits, like a jacket and skirt and, her classic pumps and just look, she had a couple of her bar pins on and some of her rings on. I'm like, I want to know, what does she do? Because you guys, she looked like what my visual was of a woman in business in 1986. And I did not see that. I saw women that were haggard, that they were working at the expense of their health, their marriage, raising their own children. I saw them when they moved up, that they weren't go gively wanting to help me have their position because I would become a threat to their position. When people say, oh, you're multi-level, well, we're not. And I know you guys know the answers to that. If you don't, you can have that conversation after. But really, a company is a multi-level company. There's one president and then some VPs and then some managers, et cetera, et cetera. And you are not going to have that next position until that person's fired, died, transferred, or quits. And so in Mary Kay, I love that, that night, Nancy Murata came to my house, my apartment. My roommate, we both had the same job, fell in love with skincare. I started with the skincare and the yellow concealer. I'd never, my mom's never really taken care of her skin or worn that much makeup. And so I didn't learn how to. When I learned that your skin ages about 14 days every night you sleep with your makeup on, I'm like, wow, 4 years of college, I'm not really sure if I washed my face. I know I had blue eyeliner on and light pink frosty lipstick in the 80s, but I'm not really sure, my skin must look pretty old, at that point in time. Thank goodness for all the anti-aging products we have now. So I fell in love with the skincare, and Nancy said, would you come to an event with me sometime? And I'm like, yeah, I mean, I liked her. I loved the products. It took 3 times. I had to cancel 3 times because my retail schedule kept changing. But I finally went, and it was at a hotel. It was a big guest event. It was a star recognition event. And so we started off recognizing and being in the room where women were on thrones and they had crowns and their flowers. And honestly, I'm looking at my roommate going, I'm so sorry I dragged you into this. Like, oh my gosh. In my mind, I'm thinking I was in a sorority in college. I didn't really like it that much because, like I told you, I really didn't. I never knew where I fit in, and it wasn't there for sure in that sorority. And so I, um, I thought that maybe these women hadn't done these things in Girl Scouts or a sorority. And so I felt kind of sorry for them. And Debbie Moore was a perfect person. She could see my snotty little mind ticking away. And she's just like, look at the principle behind this. We are recognizing these women in front of their peers. First off, when was the last time your boss told you that you did a good job? Ooh, that one hurt. The job was never done in retail. And then, pay attention to the money that they're making because we're cheering them on. Now she's confident about that level. She can go on to the next. And I started listening to what they were making. And I'm like, they're making more than I did with a 4-year degree at Michigan. And they're telling me that they're going to train me and that there's, a money back guarantee on inventory. So I'm listening and like kind of intrigued, but then they had us go into a different room, the guest, and they had, it must have been 10 directors share their before, now, future story, like their crackerjack recruiting talk that you do at all your facials and appointments, right? Before, now, future, Kathy Halua called, before Mary Kay, now, and what I'm working towards. And always telling the Mary Kay story, right? It's Mary Kay's story. This is Mary Kay's mission. This is not my brand. This is her family's brand and the company and the mission that she started that I have the blessing of representing. And so these women were telling the impact that the business had had on their life and their finances. And I was so intrigued. And looking back, like I was impressed that these women all seemed to like each other and cheered each other on because I had not seen that in corporate America or the business school I went to. And then they there wasn't a cookie cutter success story. You know, it was from someone 18 to 90, a GED to a PhD, to super extroverted to introverted, glam girl to for sure not glam girl, and the whole spectrum, body shapes, the whole thing. And they were like, what I realize now is that some of them were already born again believers. So they had a peace that surpassed um, the success they had or had not had, or anything else in their life. That God started to use me as like, there's something about these people that's different. And I thought it was just that they were, you know, a go girl, supportive, you know, tribe. And I like that. They did a starter kit drawing. I had to write a post-dated check, which back in the day just meant that you had to get money into the account before it cleared 3 or 4 or 5 days later. You can't do that now with electronic banking, but I was really good at it. And so wrote a post-dated check and then did orientation at Debbie Moore's house and went through the training packet. You know, one of the keys to success is that I played by the Mary Kay Ash rules of the game. You know, that is definitely a key factor in my success. Debbie Moore, I told her, if I do this, I want your job. And I love that she wasn't intimidated. She just said, come on. And she's still, you know, right now, she's one of the people that I need to catch up with in the next couple days because I missed a call from her. We still stay in contact and see each other. Like mentoring in this business doesn't end when your, you know, title changes to emeriti. I love that because what that relationship with Debbie Moore has done in my life is it has showed me how to be a mom and a grandma and a businesswoman and a Christ follower in a totally different way than I'd ever seen it. And, you know, God crosses our lives. Some people come into Mary Kay for a season, some a reason, and some the long haul. Mine was definitely the long haul. God's like, she's got a lot to learn. We have a lot to unteach her and a lot for her to learn. But now I get to pass it on. Well, I continue to learn because we're never done until we're standing before him, right? Hearing good and faithful servant. That's what Mary Kay, you know, most wanted us to hear. More so than congratulations, you're Inner Circle National. Congratulations, you're a Pink Cadillac director. More so than anything. You know, she handed me on a dollar bill. It said Matthew 25, 14 through 30, that she handed us when I left her home for my new director training. My first trip that I qualified for 36 months after becoming a director in a brand new town, because I went through DIQ in Douglas, I earned my first car in Douglas, Arizona, and did Queens Court of Sales there. That's where my husband's first station was. Then he was asked to train at the Federal Law Enforcement Training Center in Brunswick, Georgia. And so I moved there and was in DIQ. No success meetings to go to, called the one director in the yellow pages and asked her when she did her meetings, because plugging in every single week to your success meeting was also a rule of success. Debbie said, open up your date book every Monday. You're going to the meeting. Do your kids' birthday dinner a different night. Do, you know, get someone to help take them to soccer if you have kids. Like she was talking to me differently because I didn't have kids at that time, but you plan around it that you don't miss. You miss 1 year sick, 2 you're dying, 3 you're dead. Mary Kay Ash used to send sympathy cards to people's families. So I went to Debbie's for new consultant orientation. She told me about success meetings. She told me about going and watching 2 people's parties out in the field, find them at the meeting. I just found 2 random women at the meeting that I didn't know and met them at the party, were their helper. Those were my observations. I took my flip chart, the big cassette of the skincare class, and booked 8 parties. Debbie never did a party for me. She never offered. I joke about that. I'm like, okay, 39 years, you know, later, I have 3.5 years left. When are you doing a party for me? You guys, that wasn't part of the Mary Kay marketing plan. It wasn't. You observed, and then you booked 8 with the dialogue they gave. Out of 8, 5 would hold, and that was your perfect start. 25 to 30 faces is a perfect start. And then you book 8 more from those to hold 5 more. It's a power start. So 50 to 60 faces is a power start. You guys, we've like watered things down so much that people actually think 30 separate faces is a perfect start. No, we used to have 6 trays and mirrors in our starter kit. When it went down to 4, because the company wants to always keep it around $100, Mary Kay was very adamant about that all of a sudden people start to call a party 3 or 4 faces. It wasn't. You just need more mirrors and trays. It still was 25 to 30 faces. And you guys, that changes everything. When you do Mary Kay math the right way, it is not hard to earn cars, keep cars, earn units, and keep units. But if you don't, it does become challenging, especially once you've moved past your warm market. And so I did my perfect start, my power start, pearls of sharing, 15 guests doing interviews, got into my red jacket to go to my first seminar. And she told me seminar is non-negotiable. There's 4 events a year. Mary Kay rules of the game: seminar, fall retreat, January event, career conference. And so I went, I argued with her and told her I'm getting married. Okay. This is what she said. Okay. And then we don't know where we're stationed. So I'm going to have to move. Okay. And remember, I wrote a post-dated check and then got a loan for a star order. And so I don't have money. Okay. And blah, blah, blah. She's like, you need to go to seminar. It's congruent with what you want to do in the business. You want to be successful, whatever level success is, and even if you're doing this just to service some customers, your customers deserve a consultant that plays by the rule of the game. And so going to seminar was a non-negotiable and hasn't been, has been a non-negotiable. I've gone to all company events every single night. Like, I don't even think about it. And there's sometimes that it's harder than others. My son had open heart surgery at 3 months, and then he had open heart surgery at 10 years old. You guys, people die, we move, stuff happens in life. Sometimes finances are fine. Sometimes they're very challenging. And so, but it was a non-negotiable. You go to these things. But I will tell you, if Debbie Moore had not played by the rules of the game that Daleen White taught her, that Mary Kay Ash taught her, that seminar is a non-negotiable, then Debbie Moore wouldn't have said it was a non-negotiable. And she may have said, you know what, you're right. You have a lot going on. You can come next year. You guys, I wouldn't have made it till next year. I wouldn't have made it through my first year. See, God knew what that first year was going to look like, that my husband's job was going to take us to a border town where half did not speak English and I did not speak a word of Spanish. And my University of Michigan degree was worth nothing. And my husband was making less than $15,000 a year before taxes to risk his life every night, chasing down drugs in the desert by himself. And so we still had car payments, we had rent, we had food, I had my visa bills, remember? So I also too, there was one Mary Kay consultant there, and she had a Pepto-Bismol painted pink Granada that said, I want it Mary Kay all over the back of it. I knew that wasn't a Mary Kay car. I saw Debbie Moore. Debbie Moore was my image of Mary Kay. Our image is so important. Like, they were dogs with a bone back in the day. Like, you did not leave your house unless you could be proud of how you were presenting yourself with Mary Kay Ash. You guys, our American culture has gone very casual, and like, people, I was just on an airplane a couple of weeks ago, they were wearing pajamas, and it wasn't my 9-month-old grandson that was wearing pajamas. It's adult women and men wearing pajamas out in public. You guys, that Mary Kay used to say, you may be the only Mary Kay that someone ever sees, and you may be the only Bible they ever read. And so this was my image of Mary Kay, sharp as a tack. And then I get to Douglas, Arizona, and my husband's in law enforcement. People are laughing when they ask what his wife does, and he says Mary Kay. And finally, I'm like, ask him, why are they laughing? And he did, and he found out that she was a prostitute. That was her job, and that's why she was at the hotel all the time. And the woman actually asked to sit down with me, and she's like, do you do those party things? And I remember being so like caught off guard, like, what do you mean, do I do those party things? Like, what else do we do? It's what we do. Well, like, she was doing other stuff. So that was that city's image of Mary Kay. So when I said that I was doing Mary Kay and I was earning a car, it was going to be a Burgundy Forenza back then. That's what people thought of, the Granada. So I went to meetings an hour and a half away every single week to plug into Mary Kay Sanity, and then came back and I booked parties. I would get translators. You know how it goes. When people like you, they like the products. I do parties all in Spanish with Spanish flip chart, with beauty books, sales tickets, skincare profiles, all in Spanish. If women like how this product feels and looks, they're going to buy it. I was worried that I didn't have the right personality. You don't have to have the right personality. You have to serve people. We wash faces versus feet. Is the people who are committed to serving people. Like, I've fallen in love with that part of our business and didn't know that that was something that I need. If I don't see transformation in people and in myself, I don't do well. Like that is something that's like oxygen. I have to be connected and working where God's working. And so, God knows he makes us. He knows why you're a Mary Kay. And so if you're not sure right now, do another power start, do another power start, do another power start, offer this opportunity, go to seminar, and he's going to make it clear. Sometimes he's only going to show you the next place. But I was so crazy about doing $500,000 my first year. And I didn't. I did like 450 my first year. I was so disappointed. And now I wish my directors would do 450 their first year and the products cost 5 times as much. But they held the ring for me that I really wanted. And that was the year that my son had open heart surgery. He was born. We were air ambulanced across the country. And I came back like 3 weeks before the seminar year ended. But you know what? When you serve women and you pour into them, when you can't work, they take care of you. Like I had directors driving in and doing my sales meetings that weren't my commission directors. Whereas my husband was a federal agent and that was before family leave time. He had peers that didn't take vacation. Like I don't get that because family vacation is one of my favorite things in the whole world. But they just added all up and they could have given him some because he needed to be gone longer than his vacation time as a 4-year into the service guy, and they wouldn't because like, oh, his wife does Mary Kay. They make plenty of money. We don't need to give him any. Like the attitude of it was just, it made it real clear that if we had a choice for my husband to go somewhere on a business trip or me, we picked me because we saw the culture of Mary Kay and we saw that this was a better place to invest our time and energy as a family and for family choices and income. And now after 9/11 happened and then all the agencies broke up, I mean, he was one of those guys who was moving up rapidly, but then all of a sudden the ladder got moved to a different building because after 9/11, Homeland Security changed, Border Patrol, Immigration, Customs, Marshals, all of that. So God knew, he absolutely knew. But when I got to St. Simon's Island, that director that I called, I don't do meetings here. I'm so sorry. It's too small of an area. Ooh, you guys be careful who you listen to. Because I had just been in a town of 9,000 that half didn't speak a word of English. I knew a county of 60,000, even though it was St. Simon's Island. So it was, pretty southern Bible Belt. As long as I slowed down, this Yankee can communicate very accurately. And so I'm like, that's a mistake on her part. And I just did skincare classes and took my people to skincare classes and did practice interviews. Will you help me out? The companies ask me to build in this area. Will you, do a practice interview with me? I want to know who you know. I'll give you a free product. And, I need to get 30 people's opinion of the product this week. Which date works better for you, this time or this time? Will you be a face model for me? That was my go-to warm booking. So in the first 36 months, started in Ohio, Michigan for 2 weeks, Arizona for 24 months, and then St. Simon's Island, 36 months, 4 states, 9 addresses. Queens Court of Sales, Queens Court of Recruiting, seminar both of those years, car, a unit, and then the Super Achiever Cadillac which was a program what you got your Cadillac 6 months from being a director. And then St. Simon's Island, that town that was too small, was where we did 450, 500 trip. And I earned trips for 12 out of 15 years, 2 times as $1 million director. And one of those years was when Jake had his surgery as a 10-year-old. And so the year that my unit was #1 in Sapphire, we never thought Jake would have another open heart surgery because he was a tetralogy of flow baby. And so this surgery he had by this surgeon invented a 1-step surgery versus 2. That's why he was air ambulanced up to Mott's Children's Hospital to do it versus done down in Jacksonville, Florida. And we went to a regular routine checkup in January of that year. That was 2001, January. So that year, 9/11 happened. My husband and I, that was my first $1 million year. And he, did you see that? It means make sure the dog isn't talking in the other room right now. That's what that hand signal meant to my husband. But we were over in Ireland when 9/11 happened. So that turned into the extended. We were gone 3 weeks. And that's scary. That was a scary time period to be out of the country when that happened. My husband was still a federal agent at that time, so we had no idea what was going to happen. And then after that, I got pneumonia, which I've never been that sick. But all of these things God used, like that, us getting back home made me realize that I was depending on Mary Kay Inc. for provision and protection in a way that only God can provide for provision and protection. So check, got that lesson there. And then the pneumonia, I grew up very much in Western medicine, and you treat the symptoms. And so you wait until you have symptoms. I'd never really heard of or done preventative healthcare at all. So got very well trained in that and how I treat my allergies and my body and preventatively. And then we went to Jake's appointment just thinking, okay, everything's gonna be fine in January. And they told us that he's gonna have to have a little tweak. I'm like, define a tweak, because generally with heart surgery, like there's not really anything that I'd call a tweak. And they said, we're gonna have to go back in. It has to be open heart. There's the patch is working good, but the pulmonary stenosis, we got to trim that out before he shoots up in puberty, gets bigger. The heart's a muscle, it just grows. So this is normal. We're finding that this is normal with these kids. It's still open heart surgery. And they tell me in January that he will be having open heart surgery the last day of June. And I'm like, could it be July 1st? Is there a possibility? And they're looking at me like, this is the best surgeon in the world for this. Like, no, you don't get to ask that. I'm like, okay. So literally that January to June, I was not, especially May and June, not in the Mary Kay game at all. Our unit prior to that had been my first $1 million year. This was heading into my second, was ranked number 1 to 4 in the nation all year long. And it was just it wasn't something different I did. It was time. It was time. There was leaders there and it was time. And so that year I checked out and our family really was huddling in the Word. I'd spend sometimes 3 hours a day in Joyce Meyer's Battlefield of the Mind and just cried out to the Lord. And honestly, it's ironic now, because one of the things that I was so scared of, and this is, you guys are used to it. Dawn is, an evangelist and she's just on fire and wired for it. That was the thing I was most scared of, is evangelism, because I had experiences of people being in my face with, you need to know Jesus, or just like people that were saying one thing, but then I saw their lives and it wasn't congruent and I wasn't buying into it. And so I really God, I don't know how you gave your son to die for us. Like, I don't think I could do that. I'll die for my son. Like, I would die right now for him not to have to do this. And I go, and I would even be an evangelist if you will spare his life. Because it hasn't been lost on me over the years since then. 95, November of 95 is when that Paris trip happened. So since 95, as soon as those scales fell off my eyes, I started asking questions in that hotel room, and like pieces started to fall in place. I'm like, oh my gosh, these are all the Bible stories, everything just started to make sense. And Kathy Halou said, we're here and God's here. And the only way to him, and she wrote across, and she said, is through Jesus. And literally, I could see scales falling off my eyes and all the stories, and everything started to make sense. And from that day to now, I've been starving for the Word. I would read the Bible morning. I would read the Bible at night. I love the Word. I love the Holy Spirit. I love so grateful. But the scariest thing was that I would be an evangelist. And now, as I lead in the Bible studies, the conversations, God has a good sense of humor. He's like, oh yeah, don't you worry. Don't you worry. This is a mission field, you guys. Those of you who may not have been in long, may not see that. I don't know what your beliefs are or aren't, and it doesn't matter. Like I didn't, you know, I came from denominational, very, religious denominational backgrounds, but they were all supposedly Christian. But, a real Christian is a follower of Jesus Christ. It's not what denomination you're part of or what church you go to. It's God first is your relationship with the Lord in the Word. Holy Spirit led. The Experiencing God workbook was so helpful for me. I've done that time and time again. I teach people how to journal that way, the Experiencing God way, like paying attention to where God's working and working there. Mary Kay, when she started this, she realized there was a void for women going on in the 60s. The choices they were making was not going to solve that they were making less than men, that they didn't have the flexibility they needed. Because they wore men's suits, it didn't mean that they were going to be paid the same amount. And so she saw that there was a void and came up with a solution that obviously God gave her, because if God hadn't given her that strategic idea, I don't think this company could have lasted. Not just lasted, but thrived versus survived. I mean, really, in the pandemic, we have this beautiful research and development plant that the company, the family just, had invested $178 million into, so that on the other side, they had no idea a pandemic would happen. We'd be able to respond to a call from the government to come up with a hand sanitizer that we can do in a week and give away $10 million of hand sanitizers that allowed us to stay in business as an essential business. God's provided and protected. Our job is now protecting that legacy. You're part of that. You have a national sales director. Only 15% of consultants right now in our country have national sales directors. The ones that do, you need to take it real seriously. There's batons being passed, and if you feel called to be a national, you need to step up to the plate. You need 20 directors. Diana Polanco did it in 22 months. You can do it in 22 months. Every appointment you go to, I'm looking for leaders. Mary Kay has a leadership void right now. Tell people about that. If you don't want to be a national, find a national. If you're supposed to be a director, be a director. If you're not supposed to be, find one. You guys, we need to multiply those of us who understand what playing by the rules of the game is. The Mary Kay Ash rules of the game. Because what I have found in my 38 years, and I'm so clear on, especially after the pandemic, less has changed than has changed. Less has changed than has changed. We book, coach, sell, recruit. We are teaching women how to take care of their skin and then which set's best for you. We're business owners, not order takers. The skincare class is the vehicle to build this business. We make money selling this product, and you can build fast and strong as long as you're doing it the Mary Kay way. Those batons need to be passed, because in Mary Kay's autobiography, last chapter, her succession planning was, when I am gone, this company I know will be secure if these three things are taken care of. One, we protect the golden rule. Treating other people how we want to be treated ourselves. And you guys, we've always paid attention to that in the field, like don't take other people's customers. But you guys, now that some people choose to be order takers, meaning they don't have products on hand, they're drop shipping everything. That's an order taker. Mary Kay gave us the 90% buyback policy, so we didn't have to do our business that way that most other drug sellers do. But if a consultant does choose to do that, I just had this experience with a consultant. She ran into a woman, and the woman said, I need oil-free eye makeup remover. My consultant never has it. She doesn't keep products on hand. And she goes, maybe it's just not that popular of a product. And I'm sitting there going, oil-free eye makeup remover? Like the one that the MAC lady at the counter recommends her customers go get because none of the other lines oil-free eye makeup remover can compare to ours? That one, yeah. Golden Rule works for our customers too. If you are not going to give Golden Rule customer service as a business owner, then you can't be upset if someone, decides to buy from someone else. Because as a customer, I want my consultant to go to seminar. I want my consultant to have products on hand, because I want to know as a customer, I'm getting Golden Rule customer service also. But doing your business by the Golden Rule, that life goes best, God, family, career, and that's God, family, career. Mary Kay said it wasn't 27th, it's third. And you guys, God is not your time inside church walls. It's your relationship with the Lord. It's your journaling. It's the Bible study that you're doing. That is your time, your relationship with Him. And that is probably the thing that I see such a void of in our country. Even the people that are spending lots of time in church walls, they run out of time to be able to spend time in the Word themselves. And you guys, that's scary. Think of what Jesus modeled. He spent time with his Father, a lot of time with his Father. He'd go away by himself and spend time with his Father. If Jesus had to do that, and he's the model for us, probably should be following that. That's what it means to be a Christian, a Christ follower. He spent the most time with his Father, then the next most time with 3, and then the next with the 12, and then the next with 72, and the last with the masses. So the masses, really, we don't hear a lot of conversions from that. A lot of people being, followers of Jesus Christ before that. We just hear what Jesus said in those interactions. But most of the time that there was a lot of life change, it's in small group things like you're at right now. So I see people spending the most time on social media, Facebook, and then the next most time maybe corporately in worship, but that's a big group time. And then, maybe they have a small group that they're part of, so that should be 12 or under. And they have a couple of people who are confidants that they're walking along with that help them with accountability. But the most should be with God. So that's God, family, career. And then she also said that God placed a seed of greatness in all of us, and it's our job to encourage it out. And we just get to do that with pink cars and rings and red jackets and events like you are at right now. So you guys, this is such a fun thing to be part of. And looking back now on our 60 plus years and my 38 years, what we offer women is more needed now than it ever has been. People need hope. They need cash. Your business should be growing because you're saving women on money and time. And you're also showing them either a plan B or a plan A, because the average American household needs $12,000 more this year to do exactly the same thing as they did last year. Call it what you want, but that's what the difference is costing. And so we should be like, whatever you thought your goals were between now and the end of June, throw gasoline on it after this event and go for it. By the end of the year, throw gasoline on it and go for it. These are the times when I look back at my business, if I stayed off the news and kept my blinders on and offered what Mary Kay had to offer. Women are starving for what we had to offer, and they love being part of an environment that is real clear. This is our culture. This is our company. This is what we do. This is how we serve women. These are your options. If it's good for you, great. If not, I love you. My love's unconditional. My time's very conditional, and I can teach you how to live like that if you'd like to. So you guys, I hope there's something about that is encouraging for you. Just knowing another woman's story. In this business, there's some things, the numbers part of it is very mathematical, but the magic, and I hate to say magic because it's used wrong, but just seeing how God shows up in the gaps. If you don't know, like when someone says, like, God said this, and I know I'm supposed to be doing that, get the Experiencing God workbook by Henry Blackaby and Richard Blackaby. That has been so helpful for me because my first 9 years in Mary Kay, I was a trip director, future national. I was not a born again believer. Like, this business works. But since then, game changer. I don't sit there and cover up names and figure out who to work with because who's being most productive. I'm looking where God's working and I'm working where he's working. And so sometimes it doesn't make sense in the Mary Kay math, but it does in God's math. And, God's math is, the dollar bill. There's a book called Multiplying Your God-Given Potential by John Bevere. That's a really good one too, because he defines the multiplication. Because, this person got 5, they turned it into 10. This person got 2, they turned it into 4. And then the other person was scared of the risk and buried it. That one did not get not a good report card. But the 2 that doubled, that's multiplication. So faithfulness, you can define it in a lot of different ways, but the most accurate way from how God uses those in the parables is multiplication. It's multiplying your talents and your gifts that he has given you, because we are going to be answering to him someday. Jesus is coming back. He is alive. Like it could be any day now, who knows? But multiplication, how are you going to multiply? Multiply your customers, multiply your new leads, multiply your ask, all for the right reasons, because God, the heart, the intentions are the most important thing. And he knows that. You can't fool anyone else. So if your intentions are right and you listen to your leader, I'm so excited to see what you'll be celebrating on that seminar stage. And who knows, I could be seeing you. I think leadership conference in January is in, I think, San Antonio. So maybe I'll get to meet you in San Antonio or maybe sometime sooner. But you guys, thank you for listening. Enjoy, embrace your time. Those are just, and I think about when I retire, those will be the things I miss the most, are those retreats. But I think I'm probably going to be figuring out how to do those with women and continue on in my life, because I love what God does when you give them the opportunity to do that. And gosh, as women, we need to know how to continue to fill ourselves up so we can be giving out of overflow versus out of obligation and resentment. Totally different way to live. Okay, you guys, thank you for listening. Enjoy the rest of your time.